What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellowshow. My name's Kyle. We are joined by special guests Drake and John. It's our first show of the year. A lot to get into tonight. We're going to kind of just loosely hop around and look at the landscape of the NBA. We'll get into some fantasy talk. If you guys have any questions, feel free to enter them in the chat room. But Drake, man, what's going on? How are we doing?
I'm doing great, man. I got to show you the Spider jersey.
New Spider.
It's 71 points right there.
That is fantastic.
And first show of the year, we got to have the pants.
The Cavs pants.
We got to have the pants.
Missing some slippers and a cape or something.
I am missing the slippers and a cape.
But John, what's going on, man? How are we doing? What's going on?
Doing good. Bucks aren't doing so good, but we're doing pretty good.
Yeah, they're on a little slide right now, but they're kind of banged up. They can get healthier later as the year progresses. I don't know if you guys have any angle to start tonight. Should we just look at the Eastern Conference and kind of work our way down and touch on whatever subject we feel needs to be discussed?
Yeah, I think we're deferring to our leader here.
John's. I'm assuming John's watched the most basketball so far this year. I don't know if you've watched much of the Boston Celtics. Can you tell us anything about Boston? And then it looks like the Nets are on a 12-game heater win streak right now, so they're interesting to watch too. But what can you say about the top teams here in the East?
Well, I think all of them are dealing with certain health issues, but overall they're just kind of rising above it and playing really well. I think Boston is the class of the NBA right now. Their coach is still kind of figuring his shit out, and they're winning games despite it, and their players are amazing, especially Tatum and Brown. But they have really great depth now. Better depth than they've ever had, and kind of especially at the point guard position. I think they're a little weak at center, but overall just a stacked roster. You mentioned the Nets are on a big win streak, and but we're looking at the Celtics right now, and I mean, there's just it always starts and ends with Tatum. He's obviously one of the fantasy MVPs of the season, really good candidate for actual NBA MVP, and has a pretty good chance to lock that up at some point this year, especially if they end with the best record in the league.
He's averaging almost 31 points per game, which I can't remember. When's the last time a player averaged more than 30? Was it Harden when he was running it?
Yeah, I think Harden and maybe Westbrook.
Okay.
So I listened to Brian Scalabrine, and I don't know, John, have you checked out Scalabrine?
I haven't listened to him in this season.
He does a morning show, and honestly, every time I listen to it, I think of us three because you're Scalabrine. Has the best takes, and so he actually does the Boston home games, and so I listen to him all the time. And the crazy thing about Boston is they're doing this all without the guy that took them to the finals last year. Like, their head coach completely axed, is done for, obviously good reasons, but they've had, like John touched on, they've had this coach step in, and he's been filling in great. I mean, he has like maybe 2 college jobs that he was an assistant coach or a head coach at.
I think he was a D2 head coach before joining the Celtics staff.
Yeah, before joining them. I mean, he has league experience, obviously, but what the Celtics have been able to pull together is beautiful. Grant Williams, I find it hard to drop this guy. That's my problem every year, as we know, that I get attached to a guy that's just going to put up 22 points a game. And
I think
that's fantasy points, by the way.
I think you've dropped him maybe 3 or 4 times this year. He's that guy that you just find a way to get him back every week.
Yeah, he's mine, so don't touch him. But no, he puts in meaningful minutes sometimes. He's always getting the minutes. So
if I filter by minutes, he's getting the 5th most minutes on this team at about 28 points or 28 minutes per game. Horford's up there at 30. So he's still running hot, but they seem
Horford's probably gonna die down here in the second half of the season. What do you think, Kyle?
I would say you're probably going to see Grant Williams' numbers continue to go up as we get into the middle of winter, and they're also using. It's nice to see Blake Griffin. He's only getting about 15 minutes per game, but that number might go up a little bit too as they're just trying to rest guys. But it looks like
this is a good chunk.
I don't know what's going on with Robert Williams here. He's just missing 1 game, but he's been pretty steady. I guess December he missed a lot of games too, so he's not really fully worked into the rotation yet. So that might be some minutes cutting into Horford soon.
I think Robert Williams was actually hiding the relationship for Mika Doyle, so
right,
kind of in the doghouse right now. No, that's curious though, because I thought he would play more.
Robert Williams has been hurt. He missed the whole
been?
beginning of the year because of an injury, and so
Okay.
I think he's.
They're easing him back.
Current injury has anything to do with his recent or his previous injury, but he started the season out. So.
Yeah, so he came back December 16th, and he's kind of hovering around 20 minutes per game. Maybe that's something that we see. It looks like they're just being really cautious with him, and I think that makes sense, especially with Al Horford and Blake Griffin playing well enough where they don't need to stress it. So Celtics are fun. They got about 7-8 guys in fantasy. Any final thoughts there on the Celtics, or should we move on to the Nets real quick?
I think we can switch to the Nets.
So, I remember Brooklyn, their first 2 weeks of the year, they were kind of the laughing stock. They weren't getting anything done. And for them to be on a 12-game win streak right now, I think everyone's kind of forgot about the Kyrie Irving stuff going on early in the season. But now they're settling in here, and they don't have a lot of fantasy appeal because it's all Irving Durant. But Nick Claxton is a guy that has improved massively. I don't know if he's got any potential to win like improved player of the year, but he's definitely playing much better than people thought. John, what can you tell us about any Nets action you've seen this year?
Yeah, no, I think you hit it well. I mean, like Durant and Irving are dominating their fantasy production, kind of like a Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, if you're in the football analogy world. But yeah, I think Claxton's been really productive. He's obviously taken a step up this year, certainly statistically. But I mean, he's just playing more minutes than ever before. He's, the Durant and Irving have good chemistry with him. They're feeding him lobs, and he as a result of getting some easy buckets from those two, he gets really engaged on defense. Simmons, probably has a little upside, maybe. Theoretically, he's still kind of working his way back from a back plus a mind issue and maybe a shooting issue, but that's maybe not the point. So Simmons potentially could could improve his averages over the season. Yeah. Also, I like TJ Warren. I picked him up. He just came back. I don't know what kind of injury he was dealing with, but he missed, I think, almost the entire start of the season as well. And he's been, as you can see, just kind of slowly getting ramped up. The last week or two, he's been playing a more full minute load. But he's got some interesting upside too. Just kind of thinking about who else is useful on this roster. That's about all I know about this team. Royce O'Neal looks good, and he's playing consistent minutes, but he's not a super, he's kind of just steady Eddie guy.
So I think a healthy Seth Curry becomes a play for your fantasy team down the line. But yeah, I mean, you kind of hit it though. Like, they're very top heavy, and it's great to have one of those top guys. I watched the Nets play the Cavs the other night. It's frustrating because you have the better team, but do you have the two better players?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what the Nets do. Claxton, though, he made a freaking brilliant block at the end of the game on DJ. So I like him going forward too. Like John said, he's going to get minutes, and he's going to be
he's averaging 2.5 blocks per game right now. Over the last 7 days, he's got a couple games with 6 blocks, so that puts his average up to 5. But he is a defensive piece that you have to worry about when you're going up against him. And he's kind of he can flirt with double digits every game, and he's going to touch 4 or 5 categories for you too. And you can kind of see the numbers here. This is, I mean, if we're drafting today, I would say Nick Claxton's probably a 3rd-round pick. Somewhere in that range, if he's going to be averaging this many, he's averaging 33 points per game on the year, but I think his numbers have been trending upward. So he's a really fun, exciting young player. And then I wanted to touch on TJ Warren because I still the last few weeks I've been putting out a waiver wire video about 10 minutes long, and TJ Warren tripped all the sensors this week. So he was on the show, and this is the guy that John mentioned. You just got to look at the minutes. And one of my favorite things to look at here is you can see his season stats. His minutes are up about 6 minutes over the last 7 days. Points are about the same, but you're getting a guy that's going to be playing more and more. His scoring is starting to trend up too. So only under 4% rostered, TJ Warren It wasn't too long. Was it the 2020 NBA playoffs where he just kind of went nuts for
The
a little
bubble.
bit?
The bubble.
The bubble.
Yeah.
The bubble. A bubble all-star.
Yeah. I mean, Warren was
all
insane.
NBA bubble team or whatever.
Yeah.
So he's at 4% rostered. He's definitely a name to kind of keep an eye on. And then I did roster Royce O'Neal for the good majority of December. I just cut him recently because he missed a couple games and then he kind of stumbled out of the gates here. But it looks like he's getting back into form and he's going to play a ton of minutes for them. He's not going to do anything amazingly well, but he's going to touch all the categories that you want. And he's only about 28% rostered. So we like that. But yeah.
So O'Neal is more rostered than Claxton.
Claxton is sitting at 80%.
Oh, okay, 80%.
The Nets have 4 guys over 80%.
Wow.
And then the other guys would we be looking at to be Royce O'Neal, TJ Warren. We'll see if Seth Curry can kind of get in there more.
Joe Harris is kind of that guy, you know.
If you need someone for a night,
2 games in a row.
Yeah, he hasn't been playing for a while, but he's getting back into the lineup. But if you look at his numbers earlier in December, you're seeing the minutes there.
See, that's the thing about this Nets team. It's a good team to monitor because they do not have any depth.
And the minutes tend to they kind of ride the hot hand with whoever they got, whether it's TJ Warren right now, maybe it's Seth Curry in February. Keep an eye on the Nets and see who's getting the minutes because it seems like where there's minutes, there's going to be points.
What's going on with Patty Mills?
Let's see. He has not been playing often lately. He's kind of more of a sporadic, probably a spot start.
But even that, he's got 34 minutes in that game.
Yeah, that might have been maybe Irving missed or something.
Yeah.
Something. Yeah, definitely check the Nets and see, if you see someone starting for that game and they're available, they might be worth a pickup for the night. But that's good on the Nets. Do we want to quickly? I guess we got the Bucks and the Cavs coming up next. So
I'll defer to the experts. I'm not going to say anything about the Bucks. So
okay, let's
go ahead.
Well, John, this is the moment here you've been waiting for. Let's talk about the state of the Bucks. I just saw the Bucks on Sunday night, and I wanted to go home at halftime. It was really bad. I'm watching Rui Hachimura and Daniel Gafford just destroy the Bucks inside the paint. There was not much.
Important question, Kyle. Where did you go before the Bucks game?
Well, we watched the Packers slap the Vikings around often throughout the day on Sunday, so that was nice.
Did he hit a couple spots though? Did he hit Good City?
We did not hit the Good City. We tried to get into the Mecca, but the Mecca, man, they are such bastards there. They reserve all the tables and stuff, and there's clearly tables open, but everyone's got the reserve stickers on.
John and I had no issue getting to the Mecca. So I don't know what your thing is.
To be fair, we were there 2 hours early or something.
The Bucks game was at
on a Wednesday night game.
Yeah, that's the Wednesday. So they had all the Packer traffic coming in early too. So it was the combination of the Packers and the Bucks at one time. So we couldn't get in.
So what'd you end up hitting up?
We went to this place called the Milwaukee Brat House, and we ended up chilling there. I almost won a motorized scooter, which would have been cool. They had drink raffle tickets going on, so that was kind of fun. Almost scooted on into the Fiserv.
That sounds awesome.
So yeah, it was a good time.
There's so much stuff there. You can't go wrong.
Yeah, if you can't get into one place, just keep going down one step next door. You'll find something. But anyways,
we were paid $5 by the Deer District to give out that shout out.
Deer District, Bucks is a fun place to. If you've never been to a game and you can travel anywhere from if you're in Minnesota or Chicago or to come
probably
to
one of the better basketball spots I've been to. Honestly, they've created such a great.
They built a good atmosphere for sure. And I'm excited. Once it gets warmer too, and the Deer District opens back up with the live viewing parties, that's going to be pretty cool. But right now, the Bucks are not fun to watch. We have Chris Middleton. Do we have any knowledge on Chris Middleton's re-entry into the lineup?
Yeah, he's not playing today or tomorrow, and not sure when he's coming back. He's been practicing alone or doing limited practices, whatever. So doing his own drills and stuff. I'm not sure what's going on with him, but his absence has been huge for them. It's been really, really devastating. Drew Holiday's missed a lot of games this year as well, and I think really that on its own describes a little bit of their recent situation. Earlier in the season, you would have said the Bucks were handling their injury challenges really, really smoothly.
Right.
But it's finally kind of caught up with them. On the other side, though, they just got Joe Ingles back about a week or two ago. I'm not necessarily sure if he'll be a good fantasy piece, but if Middleton doesn't play a bunch of games this year, if they have other injuries at the wing, Ingles is kind of one of the only other true small forwards on the roster. I guess you could argue Connaughton and Matthews do that, but I think they kind of play up a spot doing that. But that's not that big of a deal. So a little bit more injury on the wing could really open up Ingles. He had a double 10-point or like 14-point assist game recently. He's just got upside compared to kind of Grayson Allen, Pat Connaughton, Javon Carter, George Hill, guys who are doing well, but are doing okay, but they don't have a lot of kaboom in them, so they don't have a lot of upside. So, but Bobby Portis, Brooke Lopez have been exceeding expectations, both real life and fantasy this year. It's very impressive what they've been able to do. Bobby rebounding, he's averaging a double off the bench, and Brooke just pretty much outright leading the NBA in blocks, while also scoring pretty better than last year and rebounding better than last year. So it's good fantasy production here for four guys, and theoretically should be five, but that Middleton spot is a black hole in the situation and on the roster, and for the record book and for fantasy, I think too. So
it's frustrating. It does. Reading Middleton's write-up here does say following back-to-back, I guess he has a chance to play Friday. So this was written yesterday morning. He's got a chance to maybe play during the week. So maybe he's not too far off. Maybe next week would be doable. But having just watched this Bucks team on Sunday, I got to say Joe Ingles did not play his best game. That was for sure. But the guy that I want to see more of, and the guy that kind of energized them, MarJon Beauchamp. He was hitting threes. He had 11 points, 4 rebounds. He was active and moving around, and he wasn't afraid to shoot and attack and try to do some things. So I'm hoping that he can
keep scrolling down to November.
So yeah, he didn't really play much until recently.
Show that. There's no more.
What do you need?
I'm pretty sure he was playing against the Cavs that game. John and I went to
He did.
Game.
He did.
He was hitting threes.
It was November though. It was a November game.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was in Milwaukee.
He couldn't miss.
Yeah, he's definitely a guy that needs more playing time. I mean, I think Pat Connaughton's going to be a guy that if he's going to continue to get minutes, Grayson Allen continues to get minutes. Javon Carter's just purely the backup for Drew Holiday, and it looks like the Bucks have 5 guys that are averaging or over 80% rostered. So that's kind of the main 5. If you needed to start someone for outside of the top 5, I'm probably going to say it's only for a game or two. Nothing really too serious. So that's kind of
right.
Serge Ibaka got some minutes the other night too. I thought that was kind of interesting. And then what happened to Jordan Nwora, John? He's just not even in the consideration for minutes anymore.
Yeah, well, we've been talking about a lot of guys who are playing kind of that shooting guard, small forward wing spot, and so Nwora has really just kind of fallen out of the rotation. He almost didn't get signed this year, so I unless there's injuries, I don't expect him to do.
He had 27 points against the Cavs tonight.
He did have he was like the second leading scorer that night or some shit. It was crazy.
I gotta watch fucking Jordan Nwora go off on me.
He's spurty. But any final thoughts on the Bucks, or should we slide on over to the Cavs?
I'm asking 2 Bucks fans here. Fantasy perspective, obviously included in this. Does this team need to make a move? They need someone else?
If they were concerned,
do they want to win a championship this year? They have to make a move, right?
If they're concerned about Middleton long term, I would say you can make a move. But I think if you look at Giannis, Drew, Brooke, Portis, and Middleton, like those guys are your heavy hitters. They're going to be.
You're playing 5 guys. Like even through the regular season, these guys are getting worn down.
Right. That's why I think the most important pieces are going to be Connaughton, and if they can develop a little MarJon Beauchamp, if he can play 10 to 15 minutes in the playoffs, that's great too. And then Grayson Allen's going to be the guy off the bench, but they don't really have. I mean, whenever
you don't have a 6-man.
Essentially, we don't have a 6-man, so I think that could be of interest. I don't know what's like. They don't play Wesley Matthews either. He's still hanging around, but he's not really
47 years old.
Yeah, he's not really in play either. So there's potential. I don't know who you trade away to gain that player, but if they can find a way to get someone that can compete,
I think Coddington gets moved.
Interesting. Okay.
I think he gets moved because he's going to have to be part of something.
Well,
What do you think, John?
that's exactly it. You have to concoct wild deals. Like if you want to upgrade, you have to basically trade. You have to trade like 2 or 3 of Allen, Carter, Connaughton, Hill, Matthews. Essentially, those are like if you pick 2 or 3 of those 5 or 6 names, package them with.
I think Ingles becomes a big piece.
And that's the only way you can really upgrade. They're talking about trading for guys like Jay Carter. Or Crowder, excuse me. They're talking about trading for guys like Troy Brown Jr. It's like we're not talking.
Jay Crowder makes a big difference on this team, though.
Yeah,
sure, but I mean he's older and he hasn't played all year.
I mean, but age isn't a thing with this squad. You're not building for the future. You're winning championships.
Well, if you could tell me that the Bucks. They're going to make the playoffs this year, no matter if Middleton and whatever in and out of the lineup. They're still going to make it. But if you can get to the playoffs with all the top 5 guys healthy, those guys are going to play heavy minutes in the playoffs. They'll probably all 30-minute plus in the playoffs. So you really only need that extra piece. So it's Pat off the bench if he can stay.
You need 8 for the playoffs.
I think Grayson's more.
Grayson's a good piece for the playoffs.
I think Grayson's more movable than Pat Connaughton because Pat offers so much more on the court than just shooting. But
Grayson other teams are going to not want Grayson. They're going to want Pat, right?
Well, I think
he's going to have to be a centerpiece, I think.
Sure. Grayson's probably along the lines of, like the Kyle Korver type where someone just wants a guy that can shoot some threes off the bench for them, and that's fine. I don't know if he's needed for this Bucks team, so I'm open to that. But yeah, let's move on to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and we'll let Drake take it away. And I'm sure he's watched pretty much almost every Cavs game that he can this season. And did you watch the 71-point doozy?
I watched the end of it, yeah. Because I was paying attention to what was going on in football, obviously.
Right.
But the Cavs have kind of a crazy fantasy team because you can play, 6 or 7 guys?
Yep, down to about Kevin Love.
Yeah, and then you get down, Rubio, he's owned by Dalton. He's going to be coming back here soon. So that adds a huge piece to this team with Rubio. But, I mean, they finally have that superstar, which is Mitchell, to kind of lean on for those 71-point games. But, I mean, So I was talking to Kyle earlier this week, and I said the Cavs are finally winning games that they should, and they are splitting the games that are against the top teams, like the Bucks or they've done pretty well against the Hawks. So going up and down, I mean, obviously Mitchell is a huge piece to your fantasy team. Garland has become that guy that is starting to score, and Allen, as Hef knows, is a fantasy gem. Did he have 6 blocks one game or something for you? Something insane.
Yeah, absolutely. He's had a couple of huge.
Mobley, when healthy, is just like Allen, but he scores a little more and puts up a little less in the defense. So
he's got a little ankle situation going on right now, but he's been
he had a back situation last week, so I think they're kind of slow rolling him in. Then you have LeVert, who at any point can put up the points. I mean, he's pretty consistent. You see some of the bigger, 36 game, put up 23 points. So, and Love's still getting the minutes. The dude probably needs surgery, and he is still just playing. All he does is pass the ball and shoot threes.
17 rebounds last night, though. Wow.
Yeah, that's insane what he did. And I sat him. So the world knows I'm playing Kyle. I have Donovan Mitchell, who scored 71 points, and I'm still losing. So,
but it's a good time to be a Cavs fan. John, have you – I don't know how many games you've been able to watch of the Cleveland Cavs. What's your biggest takeaway from what they're doing this year?
Yeah, no, I've seen the Cavs play quite a bit, and I attended a Cavs game in Milwaukee with Drake, which was really, really cool. Cavs have a very balanced roster, and it's like kind of top heavy but balanced. So you have 2 guards who are really good and 2 bigs who are really good, and a little bit of injury issue across both position groups. But I think if Mobley's one of those guys actually that I would kind of like try to target in fantasy. He's ninth in his position group right now, and he's been, like, to Drake's point, he's been playing through some weird injuries, not weird injuries, but like nagging injuries almost all season. I actually feel like he could go up a level if he gets fully healthy for the second half of the year. But yeah, it's a really good roster. There's some cool upside guys like LeVert and Love and Okoro in the right situations. Like if there's a player missing from time to time, or they can go on just kind of good hot streaks. But Okoro much more, like a couple tiers below those other guys, but in the right situation can produce. So a useful fantasy roster this year for the Cavs. Lots of guys drafted in top 6 rounds. So
yeah. And I filtered this by the last 7 days, and you have 6 players averaging more than 29 points per game, and you even got Chede over here with 22 points per game. And
he's had some like bangers of
he's
games.
getting some minutes too.
Yeah, he plays a lot. They like him a lot. Chetty, he's a situational guy. You're gonna have to pay attention. Say they have back-to-backs, I'm picking up Chetty.
Yeah,
because he's playing both games. But to John's point, I think Mobley can start getting into that 40-point range here in the second half of the season.
Yeah, definitely a good buy low opportunity right now. And then I don't know what's the outlook when Ricky Rubio comes back. Does that hurt anybody particularly?
No, because they really haven't used a guy. They signed NATO to kind of be that backup point guard, but Mitchell and Garland have been playing an insane amount.
So you'd probably be looking at roughly these 15 to 17 minutes when
nobody was picking up NATO anyways. So
yeah, but
you're probably looking at 20 minutes a game.
So do we have a date on when? It sounds like he's close.
Yeah, he's sometime in January. He's this month. He's January.
Okay. No. Well, perfect. He's definitely someone to keep an eye on. He's He's about 5% rostered. So if you guys have IR spots, definitely look at adding Ricky Rubio. He's going to be back at some point soon. And then I do want to shout out Donovan Mitchell and Robin Lopez combined for 71 points last night. Don't forget.
72.
72 is a joint effort. So that's what Cleveland's got going for them.
They were testing for PEDs this week.
Did we want to touch?
Kelly says hi to the basketball world.
Good evening.
Hi.
I was talking Cavs.
We're talking Cavs.
She's magnetic to the Cavs.
That is a cool helmet. I like that.
She got a scooter for Christmas.
Yeah, she's
scooting down here in the basement.
Kyle, she stole your gift from last night.
Dude, it was a nice. It was like one of the ones you get like with the Lime scooters or the Bird scooters or whatever. Like a nice, nice one. So dangerous with the right, I guess the right evening going on. But anyways, we covered the top 4 teams in the Eastern Conference. Did we want to talk Philly or any other team? I guess, John, what's the biggest surprise in the East so far?
I would say probably. For me, it's the Bulls. I mean, I thought they would, and I wouldn't say they were going to be a good team, but I thought they would be competitive. And Bulls and the Pacers. Like, I feel like in my mind, if you look at those standings, the standings could be like that's where everything looks kind of sort of right. Maybe the Knicks are a little high in my mind, but I feel like Bulls Pacers would have been flipped if I would have, in my early preseason rankings or whatever. But so, if you want to take a positive, the Pacers are overperforming. If you want a negative, the Bulls are underperforming.
Beautiful. And then Drake, did you have any surprises or disappointments so far? At this point?
I watched the first game of the season the Cavs played, and it was against the Raptors, and I thought maybe they were going to be a top 4 seed. I think through injury, but also that just something's not right there. And then I was agreeing, as you guys could see, with the Bulls, because like John said, I thought they were probably where the Pacers are at, and they could be. I mean, we're still early, and to give credit to the Pacers, I mean, Tyrese Haliburton is a baller. Holy shit! So I got to give credit to them and their coaching staff. They've really, Rick Carlisle has kind of put in a culture there, and they're playing good ball. They beat the Cavs on Sunday night. They're not an easy out. I mean, even if you think you should win, you might not.
They're one of those teams that are really well balanced, and they're going to play. They play really consistent. They have a lot of people that they like to spread things out with, and they're going to be consistent. They're not going to blow up anytime soon, but they're going to give you a fight.
Yeah,
Right.
You got to come prepared those nights,
And then
to piggyback on that, the Pistons. I mean, obviously the Cade Cunningham injury was huge, but preseason and starters, I thought they were better than this, and they're still down there. But if you can think about it, what if they get the first pick?
Right, and they're back to their Piston ways, and maybe
Isaiah Stewart's a great fantasy player.
Yeah, maybe that's what they're kind of doing here. They're just kind of not throwing
they
the
can
year.
Pick one and team it with Cade and all these Ivy and wow.
I mean, we're at the point where Alec Burks and Hamidou Diallo, Sadiq Bey. Sadiq Bey's still a nice player.
We didn't know Alec Burks was still in the league. I thought he was playing in Israel.
Dude, look at his last 5 games. He popped up on my waiver wire show.
He does, yeah.
Getting minutes, getting points, getting steals. He's a fun player to keep an eye on.
He's one of those guys I've had picked him up, dropped him, picked him up again, guy.
John's taken that man to dinner too many times.
And then there's Diallo, who when he gets minutes,
Diallo's good when he gets minutes.
Yeah, I mean he touched 5 categories the last 2 games here, so a couple 30-point games. He's not even 1% rostered. So.
Corey Joseph is on this team, so that tells you everything we're at.
So it's unfortunate for the Pistons, but they're going to continue to play these young guys.
This team has probably like the highest ceiling if they can get that top pick.
Marvin Bagley's back. He had been playing decently.
He was, but then Marvin Bagley did.
Averaging about 22 points per game there. Anybody else they're missing besides Cade? Just Cade. But having just been to
how's Ivy been this year?
Let me see, Jaden Ivey. I mean, he had one not so good game here, but
it's very weird that he's not playing that much. Like
relatively consistent, though.
What's the point?
He's getting. I mean, he's playing every game, though.
He should play 40 minutes a game, though.
and he probably will. And he probably will.
Yeah.
Over time.
Like what are you holding out for?
68% rostered. If anyone cuts him, if they're frustrated with him, please go ahead and scoop him up because he kind of reminds me of
he's got
Porter Jr.
SGA.
I was thinking style-wise, yes, but kind of like Kevin Porter Jr., where they have nothing to lose with getting him as many minutes as possible and just not caring.
At some point, he's just going to be released.
Like, he's a great trade target guy right now.
He's a trade target right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So I like looking at the plus minus here, and he's actually seen a dip of 1% over the last 7 days. So if that continues to fall, please do.
This dude's going to be playing 40 minutes a game here. So
what's up with?
I mean, to Drake's point, like, what are you holding out for? What are you waiting for? Like, you're going to get the worst record in the league, whether you play him or not, and you need to play him.
Get him just minutes. What's going on with Killian Hayes? He's averaging 22 in the year.
He got in a fight, so he's suspended.
Right, but why is he only 20% rostered? Is my question.
It's an interesting question because he's pretty good when he's.
Yeah.
Do we need to start? Like, can we rewind 3 years and start the Killian Hayes conversation?
You guys had him, I think, as Rookie of the Year that
I did. I don't want to throw John into that. I know I did.
But that's enough. I do want to say again. I haven't watched much basketball this year, but I do own 3 Washington Wizards on my fantasy team, 5-0 with that team. So I have been checking in on the Wizards, and I just watched them. They're
Big
playing
Kuzma guy.
What's up with Bradley Beal? He didn't play the other night. I don't know. Where is Mr.
Beal? Top.
So he was just out that night, or he's missed
No, he's been out a while. He had some like personal issues or something.
So I'm seeing a hamstring right now. Maybe he missed some time earlier, but this team is really deep without Bradley Beal playing right now. If I filter here by the last few days, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They have 7 guys averaging over 23 fantasy points per game. I own Denny Avdia, who has been quite a bit of a surprise for me. He's kind of been inconsistent, but he does have the capability to put up some 30 points every now and then, pretty often actually. So he's a guy that I like on the end of my bench. Only 9% rostered, and he's been playing pretty well. There's Gafford averaging almost 30 points per game. Kuzma's been fantastic. And then Porzingis, he's actually been staying he's only been missing a game every night. Like his overall output's been pretty fantastic if you ended up drafting him on a discount. I think he was a 4th round pick this year, and he's performing admirably. And then the Bucks couldn't contain Rui Hachimura the other night, and he's a player that I think we've all owned Rui Hachimura at some point over the last couple of years. He's finally a guy that it seems like he's starting to put it together, and he's had a 30-point game and a 26-point game in his last 3 games. So he's a lot of fun to watch. He's very versatile. So I'm curious if Bradley Beal can stay healthy. Like, this team is flirting right there at 10. I think a Bradley Beal could potentially flip them up into, the 7th or 8th seed, just a team to keep an eye on, I guess. Any other final thoughts there on the Wizards, or should we move to the West?
So some interesting stuff I heard about Porzingis. So he was praising Luka early on in the season and was saying how great Luka was. And then they asked him, well, why didn't it work out? And the Mavs drafted him or traded for him to be like more of a defensive player and get those blocks and stuff. And with his injuries, he could no longer do that. And that's why you're seeing him succeed now, because the Wizards don't ask him to do that. They're asking him to score, which he's a great offensive player. But at the time, he was a great offense and defensive player.
Right.
So it was kind of shocking to read, how he openly admitted, I just was no longer the second piece.
Yeah.
Because Luka doesn't need a second offensive piece.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So
I did
before we
get
Wizards just started, and Beal is playing tonight. So
Beal's back.
We'll take a peek at that. But I was going to say, before we get to the West, we did get a question in here. I don't know if Rabe's in here still, but he was asking Markelle Fultz or Hayes. Let me just pull up the compare tool, and we'll see if we can get you guys an answer to the question. Any thoughts on the Magic while I'm getting this set up?
I'd probably go Fultz. Fultz has been.
I think good. Fultz is the safer play.
Fultz has been really good, and he's not suspended.
So over the last
his suspension's up now, though.
Yeah, he should be back. Either I think they play tomorrow night. I think, or maybe not. Maybe they play on the 4th. But
everything I see says Fultz.
So let's see. I guess over the last 30 days, it's Fultz by about 2 points per game. They're averaging essentially the same amount of minutes. It looks like Fultz is a better rebounder. Killian gets 1 more assist per game, a little bit more steals from Markelle Fultz, and then a little bit more scoring. So if you had to pick one, I think it's Fultz. Pretty easy here.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a week-to-week thing, then definitely Fultz.
Yeah.
Long-term, we can have a weird discussion about it.
We love the weird discussions. But let's get into the West. John, how much West have you watched this year? Do you want to start with the Nuggets, or should we dive into the Grizzlies, who have been we've always loved the Grizzlies on this show, but I think the Nuggets are a bit of a surprise right now, being the number 1 team in the West.
Yeah, well, you got the back-to-back MVP. Nuggets probably deserve best record. They probably deserve a little love. So, and that's your guy, Kyle, I think. So,
yep.
If you want to give him some flowers,
I got Jokic and Murray. It's kind of a fun duo. Murray's kind of an asshole sometimes. He'll put up 15 fantasy points, but then there's some nights where he's a huge piece to their success. But it just seems like they're doing more with less, which I think is interesting. Michael Porter Jr., didn't he miss a good portion of the? Yeah, he's just getting back.
Yeah, Kyle, he missed a lot of time.
And so he's just getting back, and he kind of solidified them. But he's been pretty good for fantasy so far. Drake's got Michael Porter Jr., but then Aaron Gordon kind of having a little renaissance back to his Magic days. He's starting to. I mean, you see some 45s, a 42, a 50. He's having a nice bounce back to kind of I think he had a pretty disappointing year the last year. And then
Gordon's playing good ball this year.
Who?
Gordon is playing good ball this year.
Yeah,
it's pretty much in all of their games. And
well, I mean, considering he was the 117th overall pick, a 10th round pick, and he's averaging 32 points, 0.8 on the year.
He's a steal.
He's been a fantastic gem. And then you do have guys like Bruce Brown, who is a streaky player, but he gets a lot of minutes for them. So he's definitely under 20%, about 20% rostered. He needs to be picked up. And then I don't know if you guys have had to pick up and drop the KCP so far this year, but you'll get there at some point. But it's kind of like a 4 to 5 player team. And John, like, is this sustainable? Like, can the Nuggets continue to play this well and lock down the 1 seed in the West?
I don't know if the 1 seed is sustainable, but I think this is, like, from a fantasy production standpoint, I do think this is kind of what you're looking at. This is what I don't necessarily agree with their roster construction, but Jokic just makes everything work. So it doesn't really matter what you put around him. He's going to facilitate an offense that is out of this world. And that's what they're doing with 2 power forwards and, hot and cold, up and down point guards. So best record in the West, only 4 useful fantasy guys. That says we might have to me, that says the back-to-back MVP might be working his way towards 3 in a row, because he is special and he continues to light it up across the board.
And I don't see any injury. I guess Jeff Green, has he been doing anything for them? He hasn't played. He's just a bench piece. Maybe the Nuggets are a team that is feeling pretty good about themselves, and they go acquire
the Nuggets need a move.
Yeah,
they need a guy.
Yeah, something that can help push them over the top. But I like the Nuggets. They're fun to keep tabs on. I've been watching their box scores and whatnot. But let's move on quickly to the Grizzlies. Drake, have you been able to watch some Ja Morant this year?
I have. I've watched a lot of Ja Morant this year.
This
team is probably right there with the Cavs as one of the most useful fantasy teams.
Yeah.
To be honest. I mean, you have guys, obviously Morant's your top pick, but Steven Adams. I mean, that's a guy that John and I have loved for many years.
He's only 52% rostered, which
52% rostered, and he is their second lead. Like, look at those averages.
Like, if you're in a 10-man league,
he's a man.
Be out there.
And then you back it up with Jaren Jackson Jr. Like, this is a team built just like the Cavs. They have the big guys. They have the rotational Brandon Clark when he's healthy.
I love the 2-3 guards here, Bane and Brooks and Jones.
Yeah, and then you got Brooks coming in, Tyus Jones. We all used Tyus Jones last year. So I mean, this is a good team. Zaire Williams, when healthy, even probably is a guy we pick up. I think I had Zaire multiple weeks last year. So
I picked him up for about a week this year. Didn't really pan out. And then they're not even using Xavier Tillman, who has been on our rosters in the past, especially last year when I think Brandon Clark and Jaren Jackson were in and out. Like, we use Xavier Tillman. So they're not even scratching the surface of what this team can fully do. They're really deep and fun. John, looks like you have you don't have any of these guys? Oh, I saw Ja. It looks like Jake Phillips has – freaking Hank's got 4 Grizzlies on this team.
Yeah, he's went too deep.
Yeah.
He's got Adams, which is a big value. So
yeah.
I'm sure he didn't.
Adams was a hell of a pick. Look at that round.
A 10th round. So you're getting
Aaron back-to-back 10th rounders that are
Aaron Gordon and Steven Adams being some fantasy values. So I don't know what's going on with Brandon Clark.
Desmond Bane, like, he's the guy we've all added.
Well, Bane missed some time earlier in the year. He's just getting eased back into the lineup now. So I think that kind of pushes guys like Tyus Jones and maybe even Zaire Williams out of the rotation a little bit. But this is, I mean, if I'm filtering here by the last 15 days, you have 6 players averaging more than 20 fantasy points, a couple guys right on the fringe here. So, like, there's a legit, like, 8 players that should be rostered on the Grizzlies. And this is probably your number 1 seed in the West, I think, by the end of it, as long as everyone stays healthy. Unless, John, do you have another team that could potentially take over the West?
Well, I think the West is very much up for grabs. I mean, you have 3 teams up there that, and Grizzlies were 2 seed last year, but it's not they're all kind of foreign to that situation, being that high up the standings. And then you have the Kings up there. Kings are never in the dance. So it's just like you have a bunch of potential pretenders, a bunch of, haven't really been that high in the seedings before. So you'd think theoretically the Suns, the Warriors, the Blazers, maybe not so much the Blazers, but the Suns and the Warriors could find a way to climb up the rankings a little bit, or the standings. But yeah, I think the Nuggets and the Grizzlies definitely have a great shot to end the season with the 1 seed. I don't know. Mavericks, there's a lot of similar problems around the West. You have the Grizzlies, that's a really good team. You have the Pelicans, which is a really strong roster. The Kings, I guess, are actually kind of a strong roster. But then you have the Nuggets, the Mavericks, a little too top heavy. Can the rest of that roster keep them going, or is it just continual Herculean efforts from Luka and Jokic, which seemed like it could happen for a full season? So
the Kings averaging 118 points per game. That's second to only the Celtics on the season. So can we take a peek at the Kings? I think over the past few years, like there was that one year where we're kind of like the Grizzlies are really underrated. They got a lot of guys. Like we've kind of been on the Grizzlies on their come up.
That was last year. The Grizzlies were like the number one.
I think 2 years ago we were starting to hit the Grizzlies.
Yeah, I think 2 years ago we saw them, and now you got Sacramento here. I've always had a weird soft spot for Sacramento. I just want them to be good because nobody else really gives a damn about them. But you got Sabonis, you got De'Aaron Fox, Kevin Huerter's playing decent minutes. They got Harrison Barnes, Malik Monk. I don't know much about this Keegan Murray, but he is highly owned. And then
what was he? The 5th overall pick? He played for Iowa.
Something like that.
Yeah. He's a 9th round fantasy pick.
Very good pro.
He's looking to be pretty settled in here. So they have, it's highly consolidated with Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox, but they get contributions from Huerter and Barnes. Everyone knows Malik Monk tends to dabble with a big game every now and then. But I don't see a lot of depth, but they're not even really relying on Davion Mitchell, Rashawn Holmes. There's some decent pieces here. I'm just curious if they can maintain that 118 points per game. John, have you watched any Sacramento Kings games this year?
Yeah, I've watched the Kings play a little bit. Yeah, I think it's very similar to like kind of what we discussed with the Nets. You have your 2 hitters. Everything runs through them. They touch the ball every single time down the floor, every possession outside of like random fast breaks. Huerter and Barnes, Monk, these guys are hitting threes on the perimeter. They're making a little bit happen, but overall they're just kind of being recipients of 2 really good passers. Sabonis is an amazing, outside of Jokic, he might be the next best passer as a big man in the NBA. And Fox is obviously, really moved up the chain as a point guard and a floor general and leading a team. So, I think unlike the Nets, you have a little more utility out of your 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th guy. You have maybe not that far down, but you're down to your 5th guy. You have a little more contribution, a little more regularly from the others. So I think you have a little more depth than the Nets, but otherwise, pretty much 2 top heavy guys.
Drake, did you have any thoughts on the Kings, or should we hop into another team? We got about 10 minutes left in the show.
Yeah, let's hop into another team. John did an excellent job there.
Yeah.
Shout out to Aiden.
Yeah, good evening to Aiden, man. We've been waiting for you.
Yeah.
Glad to have you back. But Drake, if you could pick a West team that's been interesting for you.
How do we not talk about the Pelicans? Oh, we already talked about the Pelicans.
We didn't really get into the Pelicans.
Let's talk about the Pelicans.
Pels deserve some love,
All right. So starting with McCollum.
Look at that.
Yeah.
That's a fucking bingo card.
So you got, let's see, over the last 15 days, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dudes averaging more than 20 fantasy points. You have another guy, Willie Hernan Gomez, at about 18. So this is a team, and you can see there's some free agents here, like Najee Marshall,
Jackson Hayes. Remember him last year? We were all playing him.
He's kind of inconsistent with the minutes, but when he gets minutes, man, he's going to put up some 30-point bangers.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to tap that for later.
Zion being out really helps Jackson Hayes a lot.
Yeah.
So he's going to be reevaluated in 3 weeks, huh? That just came out. That came out today, the 3rd.
Yeah, he got hurt in their game on Monday. Yeah.
Oh, he's out again?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, strain.
So CJ McCollum.
Yeah.
He's been.
And he was a 4th round. You got him in the 4th round, so this is pretty easy.
He's as advertised.
Get
buckets.
How does he keep? Jonas keep? It seems like
Jonas is Steven Adams. That's why I thought it was the funniest trade in basketball history because they switched Valanciunas for Steven Adams.
It's just the same beard, just longer hair for the other guys.
Yeah, it was like same dude.
And then
different name. So,
you guys have anything on Herbert Jones?
I don't know about Herbs. Does John know anything about Herbs?
Herbert Jones is awesome, but he's a second year player, kind of an under the radar guy, which is validated by the fact that Drake, a big NBA head, doesn't know much about him.
Yeah.
But which is no disrespect to either person. Jonas, though, they look the same. They put up similar stats, but you're disrespecting the hell out of Jonas.
I am. Jonas is a much better offensive player.
Jonas is a really talented shooter for a big guy.
Is it me, or does he look like the middle Kelsey brother?
He definitely looks like a Kelsey brother.
He's the taller, like Kelsey brother.
John Kelsey.
Yes, Jonas Kelsey.
But if you had to choose someone to win in a fight, would you pick Steven Adams or Jonas?
You're taking the Grizzly man.
I'll take Adams.
Yeah,
Adams is just.
I don't know.
I think Jonas would give him good business, but Adams is. I'd take Adams over anybody in the NBA. I think. Is there anyone in the NBA you would take over
anybody?
Who?
I think I would just take him over anybody. Right?
Yeah,
I'm
probably.
gonna challenge you in a fight. It was like I got Steven Adams.
I've seen some. Maybe only Matt Boehm in the Royal Rumble maybe would be the only person who.
If Matt Boehm showed up in Royal Rumble, Steven Adams is scared.
So that's
Kyle set the season before it even started. That's fucked up.
What are you talking about?
You set the season that Matt Boehm was going to win the league.
I had
just before with your match, King of the Rumble.
Yeah,
that kind of confidence. We couldn't quell that fire once you lit it, Kyle.
I got third place in the Rumble, and I felt terrible.
It's not fun. Fantasy football sucks. I don't know why we play it. It's usually not. It's more.
Fantasy basketball is so much more fun
because it's so
and
easy.
We should not
pay
any attention to the Fellowshow.
Yeah, you don't have much of a headache with fantasy b-ball because there's something every day, so you can just forget about yesterday and move on to the next day.
My heart doesn't hurt when I lose to Pele. Okay, but in football.
Looks like Aiden threw a question in there for us. Let me just type these guys in there. I don't know if you guys can read that. If you want to,
can we ask Aiden when he became a Jaguars fan? Because last year was the Portland.
Yeah, he's always been Portland, but I think he's been a Jags fan for a while, and he's finally.
Where's Aiden located?
That's a good question, but
I'm very confused with the Portland and Jaguar thing.
So Quentin Grimes, Rui Hachimura, Tim Hardaway Jr. start bench cut. All guys averaging about 25 to 27 points per game. Quentin Grimes.
I think we keep Grimes. I mean, he's got the minutes.
So 36, 37, 48. That's pretty sexy right now. Is RJ Barrett hurt?
Yes, RJ Barrett's out. He lacerated his finger, whatever the fuck that means.
Okay, that could be.
I cut my finger on a potato peeler the other day. I'm fine.
You lacerated yourself.
Are you day to day?
No, I'm still balling.
You're still balling. Okay, and then you got Tim Hardaway Jr., who's getting just as many minutes, but I don't know if he's as sexy of as an upgrade here. But the minutes are really attractive. I don't know.
I think you roll with Grimes here.
Yeah, so we're gonna start Grimes. Do we cut Rui Hachimura then? He's kind of the last man.
Yeah, we cut Rui.
So keep Tim Hardaway. He's a vital piece of the Mavs, and then Rui Hachimura. I know we were talking him up earlier, but he's a guy that's coming on hot. So if you can hold on to him, please hold on to him, especially in deeper formats. But let's see. So Aiden says he hates all Boston teams. And then went to his first Jacksonville game, and he's always been a fan. He's been a Dame fan, does not know why. So there's that.
Fair enough, man. Love it. Thanks for joining.
We're all rooting for the Jags, I think, on Saturday evening, right?
We absolutely are.
I think everyone's kind of a Jags fan at this point of the season.
The Jags and the Lions were my sleeper playoff teams this year.
Well, you gotta forget one of those, buddy. You're going to the Sunday night game.
You gotta.
We're all going to the Sunday night game.
We're all going to the Sunday night game.
Let's go.
Well, let's not meet up at all.
Yes, please. Let's not meet up.
Yeah.
Let's text during the game.
We'll just bump into it.
Send a picture. It's all separate.
So with this being our first show, technically of the year, we're gonna try and shoot for maybe 1 or 2 of these a month going forward. Whenever we can get them done, I'm gonna continue to do a live show at least once a week. So anytime you guys want to hang out, we'll sync up and do that. But with
I'll be jumping on.
Yeah,
it's fun.
But so we're at the hour now. Drake, did you have any final thoughts? Anything that you're excited about for the rest of the season? Anything on your mind?
Fantasy basketball wise, because all my football teams have disappeared. Kyle is destroying me this week. Mitch will go off for 71 points, and I'm still gonna lose. So hats off to Kyle. Dude's got Tuesday games.
You don't have any Tuesday games?
Wizard. I had to pick up Carter.
Okay. Well, you got that.
Desperate man.
Looks
and
like
Pele spanked me last week.
You got the Josh. Pele's due. He puts effort into it, but my brother's team is garbage.
Yeah.
Did I lose connection there for a little bit? Okay. But anything you're looking forward to for the NFL, for the NBA coming up here? Now that we're fully removed from football, we can kind of focus.
I think this is going to be a very competitive East, and where the standings are right now, I think they probably lie that way.
Yeah, we didn't even get to talk about. I have Joel Embiid here on the screen. He's the 4th best fantasy player this season. We didn't even get to talk about him. So we'll have more updates on teams that we didn't talk about tonight in future shows. But John, what are we excited about besides Packers, Lions, and the Jags this weekend as far as NBA goes?
Just look at this league, dude. You got Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and Trae Young and Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball and James Harden all kind of sniffing 50. But you got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 guys scoring over 50 points a game. And it's just what a cool range of players. I mean, you've got your kind of young, up-and-coming dominant players, of course, but you've also got LeBron, who's still doing it. You've got Sabonis and Randall kind of coming out of nowhere a little bit. Anthony Davis is, not as big of a thing to celebrate because he's missed half the year, but and the rest of the guys on this list, any of the 45 and above, really, it's just super impressive. And I don't know, some of these guys are, playing through injuries. Some of these guys are, just not in their zone yet. So some of these guys you could even see higher numbers from some of them as the year goes on. So it's just, the league is just filled to filling with talent. We're joking about Victor Wembanyama and, a little earlier, but there's more talent coming. It's just that the NBA is in a great place. So that's what I'm excited about.
That's fantastic. I think you're kind of seeing the NBA kind of hit a reset button after the power trio days of teams trying to get the big three and whatnot. That seemed like the last decade. That's what teams were after. But now you're looking at teams kind of build through the draft and go get one piece in the free agency. You're seeing teams with we kind of highlighted a couple teams that just have the 2 studs, and then they just kind of fill out the rest of the roster with 4 or 5 good pieces. And I think that's kind of elevating the NBA now to where, and I even noticed it in our NBA draft or our fantasy draft. Round 1, there's 4 or 5 studs, right? But then it felt like round 1 leaked into round 2, and all those guys are averaging 40, 45 points per game. So there's a lot more second tier. I think the second tier of NBA talent got bigger this year, which is just good for fantasy, for NBA, for everything in general. So I like looking to see that. And I don't know. That's it. Any final thoughts before we get out of here for the night, guys?
Happy New Year.
Overall, that was a good take. Yeah, it's starting to level out. We had that surge of big three, but even look at the Warriors. Yeah. They had 2 top picks they drafted, and now they're kind of in that slow phase out.
They got to realize.
You have your shot, so take it. But I don't think teams are going after that. And I think maybe the James Harden thing is what sent teams the other way.
Yeah. paying for these.
Even the Anthony Davis trade, that's going to come back and bite the Lakers right now.
You're seeing teams pay high prices and high draft capital for things, and they're not working out. There's been a lot of swings and misses, especially looking at the Harden and the Davis case. Like at least Davis brought a championship to LA, but that was the sacrifice. Now they're in kind of a purgatory.
So you're seeing more like player-to-player trades. Like look at the Cavs trade for Mitchell.
Yeah,
included Sexton and included Markkanen, and then future picks, but nothing was like top 5 or anything like that. So
right. And we didn't even talk about Markkanen with his new team. So we're going to get into more.
We're going to talk about the Jazz next week. The Jazz is fun.
We got a lot more to get into. But before we sign off here, start, bench, cut. Are you keeping Adams, Fultz, or Oladipo?
Steven Adams?
I'm assuming that's Steven Adams.
I'm starting Adams. I'm benching Fultz, and Oladipo can go
do what he does.
Some yacht on Miami Beach.
Yeah, Adams is starting, and then Fultz we're benching. And but here's a question for you before we sign off. In Adams versus Fultz and Oladipo, they're together in the Royal Rumble. Who comes out? Who comes out alive?
Well, Depot's gonna like break in half as soon as Adams puts him.
Adams wins that.
Depot is the chair.
Adams wins that with one hand.
With one flick, Oladipo has a bruised quad or something. So I think that's a pretty safe answer.
That's an easy question.
But anyways, that's going to do it for tonight. We'll be back next week. If you guys want to hang out with us, always subscribe and check out all the other videos that we put out. And thank you for your time. We'll see you guys later. Peace.